Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a Maul North Tribute run. Last run I did not go over my gear, so I'm going to go over it today so you can see what I'm working with. In my Maul East run, I was still using the Savage Gladiator chain and the Titanic leggings. For this run, I was able to switch them out to Conqueror's chest piece and the Conqueror's leggings, which will help give me a little bit more life for this place. Also going to pull up my talents so you can see that I'm just dealing with a regular Fury build. I didn't spec into anything different to help me with the run. And my priest is using the full 8-piece Transcendence set. Transcendence set piece bonus helps quite a bit. The 8-piece gives an extra heal over time when you use a greater heal, and the 5 set piece bonus is actually pretty big as well. 50% chance on getting hit to fade, which helps when there are more than 4 monsters for my warrior to deal with. Can't really hold aggro easy on more than 4 monsters, so they run to the healer, but they usually end up triggering fade and they run back to the warrior. Gotta make sure to get the patrols as you find them. There's a couple of them roaming around that can easily jump you when you're not expecting it. Alright, right here we have 3 ogres. Sometimes when you zone in here there'll be 4 ogres. Sometimes there'll be 2 ogres and a dog. But when there's 4 ogres, usually I will leave Lister outside the instance and I will use my priest to mind control one of them and let it die. Then I will run out, reset, come back in, and then actually do the pull, which I'll do the pull with another mind control anyways. But that'll usually leave me with 2 monsters left, which is easy to deal with. In this case, though, I didn't realize the brutes were quite so strong, and I was able to kill one of the mage lords with the brute. I ran just a little bit too far away, so mind control broke right there. The mind control generates a lot of threats, so if it breaks, you're going to have to go in and taunt. And then I also just ran a little bit too close on my priest here, which put me in range of the mage lord sheeping my priest. But with that being the only monster there, it didn't give me any issues. Normally, if you keep max range with your healer, you will not get hit by sheep. I've got a second patrol coming. And here comes the third patrol with the mage lord and 2 dogs. That's the last patrol here that you have to worry about. I also forgot a buff, so I had to quickly throw those on. So here, I will jump up onto the ledge there and run around to avoid a couple of the bigger ogre packs and go to the far left ramp where there's only two ogres. And there's that ogre and three dogs there that you gotta kill as well. Right where we're standing right now is a reset spot if you run into any troubles. When I'm fighting this many monsters, I usually have a lot of threats, so I'm using Cleave and Whirlwind as much as possible. Oh, I got a little distracted right here. I just found out that someone I know in my Warriors Guild ended up testing positive for COVID. I let my life get a little bit low there, but I was able to save it. Right where my priest is now is not a reset spot. I pulled aggro on that ogre, which is why he ran around. So I taunted him when he got back to where Lister was. So this spot right here can end up being the same as right when you enter the dungeon. It can either be two ogres and a dog, it can be three ogres, but either way, I open up with a mind control. I've also been throwing Mind Soothe up so I can get just a little bit closer because the range of Mind Control is just a little bit farther than you're pulling aggro from getting too close. I was able to kill the dog right before the ogre died. When you let a monster die from Mind Control and nobody else hits it, the body just disappears quickly and you are not able to loot the monster. These packs, I pulled two of them and I just took them down with Holy Nova on my priest. They do a decent amount of damage when you have two groups, so if you are under geared, I would say just do one group at a time. Holy Nova eats a lot of mana too, so on the next group I only pulled one and I used my warrior to kill him. Even though this is just myself, I don't normally run out of mana on my priest. The 8-piece set bonus from Transcendence, that extra hot from using a greater heal, you can use a low rank greater heal as well. And so I usually normally just use Greater Heal rank 4, I think. And that with a regular hot, I'm generating 900 life every 3 seconds from both of those hots combined. So that's a good chunk of life. Right where I'm facing now is where the first boss can patrol around, so you gotta keep an eye open for him. He will patrol over where we're standing right now, so we have to be ready to move if needed. After he makes it to the end where he's going now, he will turn around and come over to where we are. Killed those just perfect timing to miss having to pull monsters around. Now I'm gonna go place my priest over by the door, and I'm gonna run up and grab the courtyard key with my warrior. Always make sure to kill the eyes. The eyes will spawn 2 void walkers if you don't. And for these pulls, I always leave my priest at max range, and I've never gotten banished by doing that. As long as Lister has full aggro on the warlock, neither of my characters get banished. The warlocks will usually banish the person second on aggro. And with my priest being far enough away, banish won't hit, and so I never have to deal with it. If you were to pull healing aggro, though, and the warlock was shooting you, there is a high chance that the warlock would banish my warrior, which happens later in the video to cause a little bit of trouble. Only thing to watch out for with the Reavers is that they do Mortal Strike, so you gotta make sure not to let your tank get too low on life. Okay, so I brought the materials with me for setting the trap so I can trap the boss. It requires a frost oil and a thorium widget. Normally, if you try to set the trap, you will body aggro that group, but I can mind soothe with my priest and allow me to set the trap without pulling aggro. Also want to kill the eye. I kept stopping because I didn't want to kill it close enough to other groups to pull them. And here I'm waiting for the boss to patrol away one more time. Oh, we have a random dog visit from our neighbors. And I'm pulling the group before the boss gets back, just because it sometimes takes them a little bit. I also already had a ogre suit made, which requires 2 rune thread, 4 rune cloth bolts, and 8 rugged leather. Double Reaver packs are pretty easy, they just have quite a bit of life. And normally with these double warlock groups, I will kill the minions first. Also make sure when you're killing the warlocks to have your shadow protection buff up. The shadow protection helps quite a bit with the damage. Here can be a little tricky. I like to try to pull into the top of the ramp a little bit so I can get my priest up to the top of the ramp with still having enough range away from the warlocks that I won't get banished. Right up here, I do end up dying on this next pull. I didn't realize running into the group on the right was going to body pull the group on the left. Then I also had another death from body pulling the group on the right when going into the left, so I cut the video here and picked back up on the after running back. Oh, right there, I pulled aggro on my priest from healing. I didn't have enough threat generated with my warrior. But luckily, it was just one monster. So once Banish dropped, I was able to pick back up and taunt and kill him easily. Right here, I ended up dying once as well. I did not pull them back far enough to the ramp, and I lost line of sight of healing on my priest. I did edit that one out though, too. I was gonna charge, but I ended up just getting a tiny bit too close and body pulled. Also, true silver skeleton key can open up that door if you're a blacksmith. So this group, I had a bit of an issue. I ended up mind controlling that Reaver, and before the Reaver died, mind control broke. Since my priest had initial aggro, she had aggro on the Warlock, and I wasn't thinking about that. I went in and I AoE taunted the group, but not the Warlock, so my priest ended up pulling aggro. Warrior got banished, and everything started chasing my priest. And I tried to avoid dying, which I somehow did in this video, but it took a little bit of running around. Finally got that ogre down, and then I started using the ramp to try to line of sight the shadow bolts that the warlock was casting. I thought about resetting, but I decided to try to have a little fun with it instead. And right there, the fear that I cast, the monster started running with me, and I thought for a second I was going to die. So every time the warlock would cast, I would try to go around a corner and I would try to line of sight it, and then I'd try to get back in line of sight causes him to start casting again and then get out of line of sight, which gave me a lot of time to set him up in good positions for doing damage to him. The Reaver I just had to keep fearing every time it was up until I had the Warlock down. The Warlock's dead. As I was running up the ramp, I realized I wasn't watching my group window. I lost it because I just realized that Lister was still alive this whole time. I thought he was dead, but he only got banished, so all the monsters went to my priest. So after I realized that, with just the one monster left, I ran back to where Lister was and used Lister to kill the last monster. I felt kind of silly for that, but at the same time, I was kind of proud of being able to deal with that on my priest. So here I use the Ogre suit to go talk to Crom Crush and send him down below. I was going to mind control and then I walked the priest just a tiny bit too close. I wasn't sure if the captains hit hard or did anything bad, but they seem to be relatively easy to kill. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned the 5 set piece bonus on the priest. It comes in really handy on this pull, since there's so many dogs. They do a decent amount of damage, so we want to kill them as fast as possible. But pulling healing aggro, had the dog run over, hit the priest faded, the dog ran back to Lister. That can actually save a lot of life when you are trying to kill big packs. I can have a bunch of ads running over to Masami, a couple of them hit, fade happens, they run back to Lister. By the time they get back to Lister, Masami's fade is worn off, and they run back to Masami. And it can be a endless running back and forth for the ads. So right here, I have a little bit of issue with the boss. I ended up having to cut out a section of the video because I ended up dying 3 different times. It took me a little bit to find a good strategy because the observer will heal the boss if he is too close to the boss. And the boss does a good chunk of damage. So I found out that, let's see, after this dog pack dies. Okay, so found out that I needed to run my priest up on top of this ramp over here. That way, I will only damage the king, and so when I start healing, the observer will aggro onto my priest and run all the way up around the same route that I just went to get my priest up here. And once the observer reaches where my priest is, then I will jump down to the bottom where I'm going to be holding the boss with Lister. I ended up using a couple dense sharpening stones. Other than that, I did not use any consumables for the dungeon. So the boss also mortal strikes, so you gotta be careful with that. He does a lot of damage to begin with. I didn't realize I was still in line of sight of the observer, so he was shooting my priest, so I just ran him out of line of sight. And so now he's running back around, and well, he doesn't even make it halfway before I end up killing the king, which gave me a lot of time to handle it. This was my very first successful tribute run. This video was my first attempt at trying to kill the king. And I didn't realize this until a guildie told me a little bit later, but once you have the king buff on all of your characters in the group, you can go talk to the observer, which will cause the chest to spawn faster. I stood around waiting and the chest never spawned in the video, but it spawned about 5 minutes after I ended the video. Alright, well, thank you guys for watching my video, and I'm going to be working on another video to put up soon. I'm not quite sure what dungeon I will be doing yet. If anybody wants to give me suggestions of instances they think I can do, let me know down in the comments. Thank you guys very much for watching.